Welcome to the channel. In today's video, I'll be discussing my experience and the impact that Rocket League has had on me over the past year of my life. I hope you enjoy. So I've been playing Rocket League for roughly over a year now, and I've been making content for about as long. These videos serve more as highlights and fragmented documentation of my progress over the past year. But where did it begin? Well, in 2017, I was stationed in Guam with orders to my first ship. Aboard that ship, I met my longtime friend Jerome. He's a good man, caring father, and perhaps most importantly in the context of this video, the catalyst to me playing Rocket League. For years, Jerome had told me about Rocket League and how I should play, and while it was quite popular amongst the crew on deployments, it's not something that interested me. I didn't understand the appeal. Well, sure enough, sometime in June of 2022, he brought it back to my attention. I told him I would play Rocket League if he tried MLB The Show, which was my game of choice at the time. I was focused on improving in the show, and a majority of my gaming time was devoted to getting better. Being a father and maintaining a full-time job, I didn't have much time to devote to games or other games, let alone the investment required to get better. So there we were, two friends compromising to try each other's respective game of choice, and as they say, the rest is history. After completing the mandatory intro to the game, I was prompted to select a starting vehicle. Because I was a filthy casual, I chose everybody's favorite brick on wheels, the Merc. Jerome invited me to his party, and naturally I joined. Before we even queued into our first game, he helped me adjust my camera settings and advised me that the Octane or Fennec were the optimal choices, and that the Octane is what the pros use in RLCS. The fact that there was a pro scene for this game piqued my interest, but we'll visit that later. After adjusting my camera settings and switching to the Octane, we were ready for my first game. No warm-up, no practice, just raw dogging casual with my Plat 2 best friend. This was by far the most fun and unique gaming experience I've had since I was playing Black Ops 2 with my friends back in high school. I was terrible. I got confused when toggling between ball cam, I couldn't make solid contact on the ball, I was bumping Jerome, but it was fresh and exciting, and every decent touch felt like an achievement. That single game sparked an overwhelming desire to improve. Immediately, I started to consume as much Rocket League content in my free time as I could. Tips, tricks, training routines, I was watching everything. Lethamyr, Musty, Sunless Khan, Reddles, RLCS, all of it. I wanted to Musty flick, slot shot top bins like Garrett G, redirect like Justin. I was still dipping my toes into the RLCS scene, but I was enamored by their skill and knowledge. I started to grind. I devoted a few hours a night after my daughter was asleep to training and playing. Within my first week, I learned some basic mechanics like half flips and wave dashes. I spent hours in free play just focusing on hard hits, and by the end of that week, I was able to complete the all-star default training packs for shooting, defense, and aerials. Jerome, taking note of my progress, thought it was time for my placement matches. Fast forward 10 games, and I was in Gold 2. While I was pleased with my placement, my goal was to surpass Jerome, and my best friend was Plat 2. I continued to work on some fundamentals and started to focus on more specific training packs. I had recently watched a Seabell video, or Waitin' video, I can't quite remember, but they had a very useful tip. Go about your training in free play like the rank above you would. So I started training and trying for things I had seen from other Platinums in Jerome. Basic wall play, minor aerial car control, and some basic redirect ability. As many players do around this time, I also started to work on air dribbles. Unnecessary, especially in gold, but fun nonetheless. Jerome and I continued to queue together in the coming weeks, and I quickly ascended to Gold 3. I spent a few weeks in Gold 3 Purgatory constantly bouncing between Division 3 and Division 4. In that time, I won my first tournament with a player by the name of Houston GTX. It was a perfect tournament, 7 wins, 0 losses, and when I won, I felt like I had just won a major. Despite my ebbs and flows, I was determined as ever to see that sweet sky blue star next to my name. Then, late one Saturday night, possibly a Sunday morning, I had finally achieved my goal, win my advancement game and made Platinum. It was a wonderful feeling, and I distinctly remember Jerome being surprised at how quickly I had achieved Platinum. I had been playing for about a month, and had less than 100 hours in game, so it definitely inflated my ego a bit since he had been playing for a few years at that point. Although I was happy to achieve Platinum, I hadn't quite surpassed Jerome yet. We continued Q2s over the next month or so, and eventually made our way up to Plat 3, nearing his peak of Diamond 1 at the time. My growth, while still easy to grow at that level, was considerable, and I was so excited and happy to be improving at such a fast speed. At this point, Jerome and I were about neck and neck in skill level, except I had been dedicating more time to improving than he, a luxury provided to me by circumstances in life. Unfortunately, he did not have the same luxury. Additionally, I was in full sweat mode at this point. I was watching my own replays, considering coaching, bought into placebo of all my presets that were just copies of pros. Generally speaking, I just took the game more seriously than he did. I also started posting more content to my YouTube at this time after purchasing my PS5. Inconsistent still, but I was improving in my abilities as a creator, and that was exciting as well. Jerome and I split on two different paths at this point. He was a much more intelligent player, whereas I chose to pursue mechanics and flashy but unnecessary things. My air dribbles were getting more consistent, I could hold a decent dribble and get some good flicks, but his fundamentals were better still, at least his ground game. He was the ground guy and I took flight. Eventually, once I ironed out some consistency issues, we both advanced to Diamond 1. Jerome and I frequently played threes or rumble and snow day, which was a refreshing take from constantly sweating in ranked, and we had plenty of funny moments and good times. I continued to improve and eventually hit Diamond 2 not too long after Diamond. I was getting more consistent, playing faster, playing smarter, and still having as much fun as ever. Fast forward a few more months, and I now comfortably sit in high Diamond 3, but what good does comfort do? At this point, I had achieved my goal of surpassing Jerome and had been past him for some time, and he, to this day, gives me more credit than I deserve in my opinion. I was left to the terrors that are solo queuing in Diamond 3 2v2s, a barren, scorched earth that I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy. For what seemed like an eternity, I languished in mediocrity, constantly on the cusp of champ, but forever out of reach. I had good mechanics for my rank, I was consistent for my rank, I was smart for my rank, but as you'll recall, you don't practice for your rank. I'd grown tired of the constant back and forth of being in low Diamond 3 up to high Diamond 3. With renewed vigor, I revisited training packs and began to attempt shots in new ways, pushing my abilities, doing my best to emulate pros, and thinking of new ways to approach the game. I also, despite my desires, began to play more ones. Everything I had heard from pros, coaches, content creators, everybody, was to play ones. So that's exactly what I did. I spent a week only playing ones and training, and eventually in the middle of a Saturday afternoon, and finding a good random to party up with, I had ascended to the next rank, Champion. About 9 months from my very first game of Rocket League, I had achieved Champion, and I was ecstatic. I knew I was able to do it, I knew I was good enough, and finally, after months of being stuck in Diamond, I made it to Champ. In that time, I also attended PAX East at the Boston Convention Center. There, I spoke with some colleges about esports and was offered a scholarship from Fisher College and their esports program. I also had a conversation with a family friend and someone I look up to as a mentor by the name of Los. This conversation with him was the most important talk I've had with anybody since I started playing Rocket League and making content, and gave me the conviction to pursue my dreams of being a full-time content creator, and for that, Los, if you watch this, thank you. Going forward, my new goal is to reach at least Grand Champ 2 in a year from now, as well as continuing to grow on all platforms. Rocket League has not only introduced me to some good friends, but has provided my life with more joy and fun than before, and for that I'm grateful. If you'd like to play together sometime, I'll leave my Epic ID and PSN in the description, as well as my TikTok and Twitch. Thank you for watching, feel free to share stories of your own, and if you enjoyed, please consider liking the video or subscribing.